segment 2. From Mississippi and a long time ago to the nation today, 37 races. That's the number of gubernatorial elections that are going to take place this November. For some months now, as chairman of the Republican Governors Association, you've been working hard. You've been crisscrossing the country. Here you are in California today. You've been raising money. You've raised some $40 million, according to the most recent reports, all on behalf of these 37 gubernatorial candidates. Why do those 37 candidates matter so much to the governor of Mississippi?
Well, of course, one of the great legacies of Ronald Reagan is the states count. Mm-hmm. We did have some devolution of power back away from the federal government to the states. So it matters who your governor is. Look at California and look at the differences. And if state policies here were more like some other states, California would be in a whole lot better shape. So, it matters who's the governor for state purposes. Secondly, and very importantly, the governors who are elected this year will preside over redistricting. The census this year means that we must reapportion, redistrict, both the U.S. House and both houses of the state legislature in the next 2 years. 39 governors have a role in reapportionment. Many of them can veto the redistricting plan. That matters. Suppose the Republicans gain 45 seats in the House this year, gives us a 5-seat majority, and then we get gerrymandered out of 30 seats in the redistricting. So it matters for the House of Representatives and for the legislature. Of course, it matters who's governor of a state in a presidential election. If you've got an attractive, aggressive, hard-working Republican governor in a state, it's worth a couple of points in the presidential election of 2012. Finally, finally, there is a correlation that is not well recognized that very rarely do you get a Republican senator, a new Republican senator elected to replace a Democrat if the same day we lose the governor's race in that state. Almost a zero correlation for the last 17 years. 27 states this year have both a governor's race and a Senate race. So there's a real effect on Senate races as well. So just however you look at it, these governor's races count. You know as well as I, public policy-wise, often it's the states that generate new and appropriate public policies.
I wanted to ask you about that. You mentioned that it's a legacy of the Reagan years that states count more than they used to do. Are we seeing governors stand up in a way that makes states count even more today? Governors stand up to the Obama administration. 20 states, Mississippi is one of them, have filed suit. I have joined a suit in Florida that challenges the constitutionality of Obamacare. You had Bobby Jindal. I want to come to this in a moment, but Bobby Jindal, particularly during the oil spill, saying this is the way the spill should be handled. The federal government's got it wrong here and here and here. You've got Mitch Daniels in Indiana saying Obamacare is bad for the people of my state, and this is why. The challenge to Washington seems, I'm arguing, I want to see what you make of it, to be centered not so much among Republicans in the House or Senate as in the Republican state houses across the country.
In fairness to the Republicans in the House and Senate, leadership and rank and file, look, when you're in a minority, particularly in the House, all you can do is vote.
Right.
You can oppose. If you propose, it's never going to see the light of day. The news media won't even cover it. So I don't want to talk that down.
All right.
But what's going on here is that the Obama administration is taking steps that are unprecedented in American history to gather power to the federal government. I mean, there is nowhere in the Constitution or in American history that it's ever been said that the federal government has the power to force you and every American to buy a product, whether that product is health insurance, automobiles, or candy bars. There is nowhere in American political history that the federal government has ever assumed to itself the power to force every American to buy some product. And that's no more in the Commerce Clause than the man in the moon. So that is why governors have stepped up. I mean, we have health care programs. They're about to make our health care programs outrageously more expensive. You know that half the people who are going to get, quote, health insurance out of the Obama bill are going to be stuck on Medicaid? 15, 16 million people will just be added to the Medicaid rolls. In my state, Medicaid rolls are going to go up 50%, and it's going to cost the taxpayers of Mississippi about $240, $260 million a year, that's 5% of my total state budget, $250 million. And there's no way we can get that except raise taxes. But that is being forced on us by a health care bill that when you and I and most everybody who watches this thought of health care reform, we thought it would save money.
Right.
In fact, it's going to make the cost of health care go up.
Right. Few predictions. How many of those 37 gubernatorial races are we going to win?
I will tell you, there are more competitive races than you can imagine. I mean, when we're ahead in Oregon, when we're ahead in Iowa, Illinois, Wisconsin, Michigan, Ohio, and Pennsylvania, all 6, it looks good for us, but we'll never forget, month's a light year in politics.
Right.
The election's not now. The election is a month and a half away.
You were chairman of the Republican National Committee in 1994 when Republicans picked up 54 seats in the House of Representatives to recapture the House for the first time in 4 decades. How does the political climate in November 1994 for Republicans compare with the political climate for Republicans today?
For more than a year, I have said the political environment is better for Republicans than it was in 1994. This, way back in the summer of 2009, because of health care, when the American people were concerned about jobs and the economy, and all they heard Congress and the administration talk about was health care, the American people started getting mad. And the intensity of this started so much earlier than it did in 1994. Anger, at fear. People are scared for their country's future, scared for their children and grandchildren, scared for their businesses. And this started months and months and months ago. My fear the whole time has been that it would kind of reach a crescendo too early. The Scott Brown race in January, I was tickled that he won, but I'll tell you, scared me. Is this going to let the air out of the balloon?
But it hasn't happened. The polls show.
That's right. It has continued. In fact, you can make the case it's gotten stronger. The numbers in the polling have certainly gotten better for Republicans. But we cannot assume that means we're home free. You know, there's a great political saying, you got to run the hardest when the wind's at your back, because that's when you got to get all the ground you can get between you and your opponent. So he's got a heck of a lot more to make up. So we got to keep our foot on the accelerator, shoulder of the wheel, take nothing for granted. I do think it is more likely than not we'll elect a majority of the House as Republicans.
More likely than not.
I think more likely than not. I think probably we'll get in the mid to high 40s in the Senate. And I feel pretty certain that we'll get 30 or more governors. Right now it's 26 Democrats, 24 Republicans. If the election were today, we'd probably get 33, 34 Republicans. But I suspect we'll get at least 30.